For the last 17 years, the fitness industry has been running on outdated advice. We were told you need to lift heavy, train to failure, and apply complex periodization to grow muscle. But this new study, done with more than 30,000 people, reveals that we've been training wrong all this time. So in this video, I'll show you the findings of this new study, what you need to stop doing immediately, and how to tweak your routine to actually grow. Starting with why you should actually trust this study. The American College of Sports Medicine is the global authority in sports medicine and exercise science. They're basically the gold standard, and when they publish guidelines like this, it is a massive deal. It becomes the foundation of how coaches program and how textbooks are written. The problem is, however, their last update was in 2009. Just think about how much the fitness space has changed since then. For years, the belief was that 8 to 12 reps was called the hypertrophy zone. If you do fewer reps, you're building strength. If you go higher, you're doing endurance. The research shows that rep ranges don't matter as long as you put in the work. So what does it really mean? For compound movements, I recommend most of my clients to work within 6 to 10 reps, and for isolation movements, often 10 to 15. The reason is that going higher reps on compound movements and heavier weight on isolation movements often leads to fatigue and poor form. But the research is very clear. You can grow muscle doing anywhere between 6 and 30 reps. And the same applies to the weight on the bar. Light, moderate, heavy. It doesn't matter for hypertrophy as long as you're close to your limit. For years the message was simple. Train to absolute muscular failure. Push until you cannot move the weight. That was the marker of a hard set. This 2026 review looked at the data and found that training to failure is simply not necessary for strength or hypertrophy. In fact, the data actually trended against it. Stopping 2 to 3 reps short of failure produces the same results as going to complete failure. This is a massive shift. The new guidelines have moved away from percentage-based training and embraced RIR, or reps in reserve. Now here's my honest take. Almost all this research is on novice lifters. And from reviewing hundreds of form videos from my clients, most people don't know what failure actually feels like. They think they are close, but they're often 5 or more reps away. They stop when it gets uncomfortable, not when they're genuinely reaching their limit. So here's how I handle this with clients. I actually recommend going to true failure first. Not necessarily as a permanent strategy, but so you learn what your real limit feels like. Until you really know how it feels, stopping 2 to 3 reps short often means stopping 6 or 7 short without even realizing. So to make this practical, just pick a rep range. Pick a weight that brings you to failure within that range and really push hard every single set. And just keep doing that over and over again. It's that simple. The fitness industry loves to sell complexity. We were told you needed complex periodization, a perfectly structured split, sophisticated programming to make serious progress. The new guidelines actually say that periodization is less important than ever thought. It doesn't outperform simpler, non-periodized training. Across 137 studies, simplicity won. All you have to do is pick a program and follow it for at least a year. And if you want a program that 90% of my coaching clients are following, there's a link in the description. It includes a 2, 3, and 4 day split. Which brings me to my next point. Because the new guidelines also say that training frequency doesn't matter for hypertrophy as long as you hit enough total volume. This has been an endless debate. Full body, upper body, push-pull legs. But the research shows that training a muscle once a week or 4 times a week produces similar growth, as long as you're doing enough hard sets per muscle group per week. And here's my take. Training each muscle twice a week is still the practical sweet spot for almost everyone. Because spreading your volume across 2 sessions keeps the quality of each set higher. If you're squeezing in 15 sets of chest into 1 session, the majority of those sets are going to be shite. Fatigue accumulates, form breaks down, and you're probably doing more harm than good. So then what is the optimal number of sets per week? And this turns out to be one of the most important predictors of muscle growth. The research supports a minimum of 10 sets per muscle group per week for meaningful hypertrophy. More volume does produce more growth, but with diminishing returns beyond roughly 18 to 20 sets per week. From my experience though, 18 sets at high intensity and genuinely good quality just produces too much fatigue for most people. And that's why I almost always program 10 to 15 sets per week for my clients, depending on the goal and the muscle group. Now I've talked about quality a few times, but what do I mean with that? Strength training isn't just moving a weight from point A to point B. It needs to be very intentional. And honestly, bodybuilding has known this for decades. Controlling the weight, especially on the way down, feeling the muscle lengthen on the load. This has always been a hallmark of good technique. The science has now finally caught up and confirmed it. The new guidelines flag eccentric contractions, which is the lowering phase, as one of the only 2 variables that consistently enhance hypertrophy beyond standard training. It is one of the clearest findings in the entire paper. And almost every person I've worked with dropped the weight as quickly as they could on the way down. And that eccentric phase is exactly where a significant amount of stimulus is generated. So I recommend to aim for 2 seconds on the way down at the very minimum. And you'll probably have to drop the weight to do it properly, but this is exactly what should happen. Now here's something that really stood out to me reading through this research. With all the findings on what drives muscle growth, one concept considered fundamental to any serious training program doesn't appear in the final guidelines, and that's progressive overload. And they do acknowledge it in the discussion. They describe it as fundamental to resistance training. In practice, this is the piece of the puzzle that separates people who keep making progress from the people that plateau. If you're not getting stronger over time, you're probably not growing. The progression model that I use with all my clients is double linear progression. So you've got two levers, reps and weight. First, you increase the reps until you're at the top of the rep range with good form. Then you add weight, reset, and build the reps back up again. For some reason, they left it out, but I would argue it belongs at the top of it. These new guidelines change the muscle building game. If you finally want to see the results your efforts deserve, I send a weekly email covering tactics and lessons around training, nutrition, and mindset. The link to join is in the description. And if you want to grow your arms so fast it's almost illegal, watch this video next.